Got it. The other Keith got it.
The other Keith. But about 2 years ago, I left Tampa for personal reasons, and I ended up in Costa Rica for half a year. I had access to a free home in Costa Rica. I had a friend who said, I have a house down there that I hardly ever use. I'll let you use it for free as long as you want, as long as you just keep the electricity on and keep an eye on things. And I thought that was too good of an offer to turn down. So I ended up moving to Costa Rica, and I thought it would be like paradise down there, and the beaches were real pretty and everything, but there wasn't a whole lot going on there. I was there for half a year, and I never really made any friends, and I didn't meet any pretty girls, and I couldn't find a job, and I spent half a year going to the beach in the day and just kind of bumming out at night, and I didn't get a whole lot accomplished there. And after half a year of kicking around Central America, I explored all over Costa Rica. I went to Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Panama, and I was looking for a new home, and I couldn't find a new home in any of those places. I had a friend who invited me to come live with her in Austin, Texas, and I moved to Austin 19 months ago today, actually, and it's been a really good change so far. And it's good to see all of you. Some of you I haven't seen in a long time, some of you I don't know at all. If you want to take a seat, go ahead and take a seat, because I think I have about an hour's worth of funny stories to tell you, and then we'll do some questions, if anybody has any questions or comments. And at the end, I have books for sale. I have free posters and free stickers, too. Well, some of you might have heard about this book that I have that came out. That it was technically released on June 9th. It's really been out less than a month. It was printed in April. The release date was June 9th. And so far, it's been doing really good. It's been getting a lot of good publicity, and everybody's read it, has liked it. I've got a lot of letters from people saying, I can relate to this part of it, or this part, something like that happened to me too. And I've been getting a lot of really interesting reactions. I had one guy who sent me an email, and he said, there's a weird story in here about the FBI. Did anybody read the book here yet? Has anybody read it?
I don't think I got that.
There's a weird story in this book about the FBI, and this guy basically thought that I was lying. And I said, no, everything in this book is absolutely true. And there's some very relatable stories, and there are some very crazy stories that some of you might not believe, but every word of it is true. So this book is about the important people, places, and things in the last 30 years of my life, as told through a punk rock record collection with a punk rock soundtrack. And one of the important people that I met early on when I was in high school in 9th grade, I made good friends with this really crazy guy named Mike McGuire. And whenever I listen to the first album by The Dictators, I kind of think of how I met my friend Mike McGuire. And it's also a story about sharing music, which I'm very interested in doing. If I find a good record, I like to make a copy of it for you. So here's the first one. I was a 9th grader at Martin County High School in Stewart, sitting at one of the many mandatory attendance pep rallies that our school administration thought was just as important as, say, math or English. All the weird kids who clearly did not give a shit found each other and sat in one area, not cheering, looking bored, and talking about music. It was at one of these pep rallies that I first heard Motorhead on a boombox. As the more spirited members of the student body screamed their lungs out for the MCHS Tigers, we quietly discussed the dead Kennedys, our hatred for jocks, and General Oxt. Between cheers of "Tigers!" during the 3-second lull between the crowd roars, somebody sitting directly behind me shouted, "Pap smear!" at a shattering volume and pitch directly into my right ear. It was so loud it hurt. I wanted to punch whoever blasted my poor ear. I spun around to see a cackling 15-year-old Mike McGuire clutching his gut red with laughter, obviously delighted with his wit. Then it occurred to me exactly what he yelled, and I started laughing too. That's how I met Mike, and although we've not lived near each other in decades, we've been friends ever since. Mike dressed like a combination of punk icon Darby Crash and Mr. Furley from Three's Company. He did. He wore an ascot. He carried a briefcase. Sometimes he wore a dog collar with a padlock on it and spiked bracelets. And sometimes he wore a leisure suit. Yeah. He called himself the Reverend fucking Mike Anarchy because all good punk rockers had a nickname. My mother hated him and probably still does. He once got Chris Oliver and me arrested for an indiscretion with a BB gun and a Kentucky Fried Chicken sign. By 11th grade, Mike and I shared a locker. One day I forgot my English book and ran to the locker in the middle of class to get it. When I opened the locker, 2 large bottles of liquor tumbled out like something out of a movie. There was a school security guard in the hall. He heard the clatter and saw me stuffing something back into the locker. He was making his way over to me, so I took off running to class with my English book. Later in the day, I told Mike to please get the alcohol out of our locker, and he did, by drinking it, I assume. Another day, almost the exact same thing happened with a Ziploc bag of magic mushrooms. Sharing a locker with Mike McGuire could be trying, however, sometimes it was rewarding. One day I opened the locker and found the first Dictators album, Go Girl Crazy. Mike told me he didn't know who they were, but the cover was so stupid he had to buy it. He let me borrow the album, and it was, of course, sheer brilliance. Mike's copy of Go Girl Crazy made the rounds at MCHS, passing from weirdo to weirdo until we all had dubbed copies. And that's kind of what it's all about, is sharing the music with people you like. And, of course, meeting great people through the music. Here is another story